Hi, welcome to the first part of the series of logical reasoning lectures. I am Abhishek and I am going to take you through this journey. In these tutorials, I am going to cover all important question types that appear in popular exams and the tricks, techniques and shortcuts used to solve these so-called messy problems in an elegant manner. The question we are going to discuss today talks about 7 men who own 7 different brands of car and play one of the 3 given sports. There is a set of 9 statements that is given in the question for us to work on. We basically will need to arrive at a tabular arrangement that lists the 7 men, the brand of their respective cars, and the sports played by them. I will advise you to pause the video here, read the question carefully, and try to solve it first on your own. In fact, you can also get access to all these questions in a downloadable format on our website. Let's proceed with solving the problem now. We first create a table with 7 rows and 3 columns, as is generally done in all such questions. The first column would have the names of the men, the second column would have the car brands, and the third column the sports played by them. The most popular way, though it may not be the optimal method all the time, of starting to solve a question like this is to fill completely one of the columns of the table, which we will do in this case. So let's just start with listing the names of all 7 men in the first column of the table. Having filled the names column, we will now first try putting as much data in the table as can be filled directly. Let's first use statement 1. It says that Mike owns a Ford and that he doesn't play tennis. We will use only the first part of the statement at this stage, the Ford bit, and put this piece of data in the table. So Ford goes in the empty cell against Mike. We keep the second part of the statement aside for the moment and will come back to it later. Now we will make use of statement 2, which reads that Neil owns an Audi and that he plays tennis. This time we can use both the pieces of data given in the statement and put them in the 2 cells beside Neil. Let's use statement 6 now. It states that David owns a Suzuki. This again is quite straightforward. Just drag the cell next to David and fill it up with Suzuki. Please note that we used just the first part of the statement here and ignored the part which says that David doesn't play tennis. This again is to be used later since this is a negative statement. More on that a little later. We will use statement 5 next, which says that Krish and Jack are the only 2 badminton players in the group. So we put badminton in the 2 cells against Krish and Jack respectively, and with this we have exhausted badminton. We are now done with the simplest part of solving this problem. Having filled the basic information in the table using the affirmative statements, that's the positive ones, we now go on to the other statements. So the rule is very simple. We use the affirmative statements first, fill in the table as much as possible, and then go on to the statements that are negative or more convoluted. So we revisit statement 1 now and use it in conjunction with statement 5. It tells us that Mike doesn't play tennis. Since badminton is played by just 2 persons and both the cells have already been filled, what it basically means is that Mike should be one of the persons playing cricket. There is no other choice. We fill this up and move forward. Similarly, statement 3 says that Salim doesn't play tennis, which would mean that Salim also must be playing cricket using the same logic. Thus we put cricket in the sports cell in Salim's row. We repeat this exercise once again and revisit statement 6, which now tells us that David doesn't play tennis. We can easily infer that David also would be playing cricket and fill the cell up accordingly. Moving forward, let's look at statement 8, which reads that the Toyota owner plays badminton. Now look at the 2 highlighted rows, the one with Jack and the other with Krish. One of these 2 has to be filled with Toyota. But if we look at statement 4, we can see that Jack is not the one who owns a Toyota, which means that Krish must be the Toyota owner. And so we put Toyota in the cell next to Krish. Let's move forward. Statement 7 says that cricket is played by neither the Jaguar owner nor the BMW owner. Since now we are left with just 3 cars, Jaguar, Honda and BMW, the only car that the cricket player may possibly own is Honda, and so we put Honda in the cell adjacent to cricket. We look at statement 9 now, which tells us that Bob doesn't own a BMW. Now, BMW and Jaguar are the only 2 cars left. This means that Bob must be the Jaguar owner. Quite simple. Now if we look at the second column, there is just one vacant cell here, the one which has been highlighted. Since the only car left now is BMW, it has to occupy this cell. For filling the last cell of this table, we go back to statement 7 now. It tells us that the Jaguar owner doesn't play cricket, and as we know that badminton has already been exhausted, the only possible sport for the Jaguar owner is tennis. We fill this up and complete our table. The problem we just saw was a fairly simple one, which could be cracked easily if one just organizes the data well. The most important thing in all such questions is the order in which we use the given statements. We follow an incorrect, or rather I'll say a suboptimal order, and we are left with multiple cases to grapple with. With this, I'll wind up this tutorial. I'll see you next with a more challenging problem, a slightly more challenging problem, and a different approach to solving it. Goodbye until then.